Very bad little girl.
Excuse me. What did you call me?
This review has been made possible by Kristen Frades thanks to his awesome support on Ko-fi. If you'd like to be like him and order your own request for an animated film, short, or single episode of a cartoon of your choice to be reviewed, please head over to my Ko-fi commission page. See, I told you that another one of these Cartoon Monsoon pilots would be the subject for a future review request. While I obviously recommend watching my previous review of Go Go Mobile Boy as well, one thing I'll reiterate from it was that there was one runner-up behind Mobile Boy during the 2003 season in which it won the potential of getting a full series on Kids WB. Not the green light of course, but the potential. Gorilla Girl happens to be that runner-up I'll be reviewing today, and with the good news that Adult Swim's Checkered Past block is not only bringing back the What a Cartoon show in reruns just in time for the revolutionary program's 30th anniversary, but also air the even rarer cartoon pilots from the early 2000s, this is currently a perfect time to discuss an obscure rejected pilot owned by Warner Bros. Gorilla Girl was created by a man who I often forget is a Twitter mutual, Darin McGowan. He is a longtime storyboard artist with no shortage of admirable credits on his resume, including Futurama, The Wild House, HiFi Puffy Yumi, The Mr. Menso, The Wild Thornberries, and As Told by Ginger. In fact, that last show was how I became familiar with him in the first place, thanks to his appearances on the Weird In Between podcast and him tweeting his boards for the sequence in Butterflies Are Free, where Carl has a nightmare paying homage to the late David Lynch's Twin Peaks. Going back to Darin's own creation, the earliest instance I can remember hearing about Gorilla Girl was when he talked about it in his LinkedIn learning course, Daran McGowan, the storyboard artist's wife, which I will definitely be using as a primary source for fun facts I'll bring up during this review. Alright, no more monkeying around, time to swing right into my review of Gorilla Girl. As you might have already guessed, the basic concept is a familiar story we've seen before, centered around a young human child who was raised by animals in the jungle, usually apes. Considering that this is the work of a Wild Thornberry storyboard artist we're talking about, you could say that our main protagonist, Jenny Silverback, is like a female Donnie, only a million times more comprehensible. Although Darin made the more conventional Tarzan comparison when he discussed Gorilla Girl's development. There is a twist to this cliche, however, which I'll get to shortly, but right now I'll say we get some good establishment of Jenny's character as this two-part pilot starts. The intro depicts the jungle animals running for their lives like the Tasmanian devil is behind them, only to finally reveal that they're running from a little girl, gorilla. Yeah, Jenny really gets triggered if you identify her as her true species of human. She was raised by a gorilla, embraces the typical behavior of gorillas, so as far as she's concerned, she is a gorilla. But here comes the twist to this raised by apes cliche. While Jenny's father is a gorilla named Jeffrey, her mother, or stepmother, is a woman named Constance, a British scientist who actually got married to the gorilla. And yes, it is every bit as weird as seeing Brian Griffin date human women, or thinking about the implications behind Hector Concarne and Major Dr. Gasly having a fully human son in the future, while the former is still attached to Boskov the bear. I'm still hoping it was just some scientific DNA sample crap behind that case. So how long ago Constance and Jeffrey became a couple, and whether or not Jenny was previously raised by a female gorilla is unconfirmed. But judging by Jenny's frustrations with Constance trying to teach her how to act like a civilized person, I'm leaning more towards the idea that Constance had just recently stepped in as Jenny's new mother. You know, it's funny how I'm reviewing another cartoon with a protagonist named Jenny who doesn't want to strictly follow her non-biological mother's rules on living with a purpose. Mommy issues aside, as Jenny chats with her bird buddy Kevin, they get caught in a trap, and we're introduced to the main antagonists, a pair of poachers named Rafferty and Renee. Perhaps unsurprisingly, they plan on exploiting the poor Gorilla Girl in a freak show, but thankfully, the semi-innocuous mistake of calling Jenny a quote, widow girl was enough to save herself and Kevin. The ass whooping doesn't totally defeat the poachers, however, because they quickly shift their intentions over to the silverback couple and capture them instead. end of part 1. In part 2, Jenny, with the help of Kevin, swings in to save her tranquilized parents from Rafferty and Renee, although she's more concerned about her gorilla caregiver's well-being than her human ones. Even Kevin's like, "Hey, what about your mom? She's tranquilized too, you know." On the topic of Kevin, as Jenny and the poachers engage in an epic final boss battle, it is our feathered friend who finds out about some more dirty laundry from Rafferty and Renee. He frees a bunch of captive mutant animals who have all been spliced, half-baked, diced, and regurgitated. Anyone who was able to understand that cartoon reference is firmly appreciated. So Jenny gives these Island of Dr. Moreau rejects the honors to beat the crap out of the two hunters, and she's happily reunited with her dad. Oh, and Constance too. By the very end, Jenny and Constance are on better terms with each other following the rescue, and the latter accepts the former as the brave gorilla she truly is. Gorilla Girl has been another enjoyable Cartoon Monsoon pilot to try out. It was a nice and simple Tarzan-like story offering some great qualities throughout. Certainly not the least of which is the voice acting that helps give life to these characters. Returning from my previous Cartoon Monsoon review subject for the cast of this one are DeLisle and Daran Norris, and they're as awesome in Gorilla Girl as they were in Go Go Mobile Boy. Out of those two talents, perhaps unsurprisingly, I'm giving most of the praise to this wonderful woman, who does double duty as both Jenny and Constance. It's not unwarranted, because as we hear the emotional young Gorilla Girl and her sophisticated British stepmother, you can tell Gray's impeccable vocal range is clearly on display here.
Most little girls love cupcakes.
I am not a girl!
I think Kristen pointed out to me how Jenny kinda sounds like Mandy from The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, and yeah, she is basically Mandy if she wasn't consistently deadpan.
You're so not keeping that dress. I need to stop drinking steak sauce.
But don't worry, Daran Norris, you deserve praise too. For the voice of Rafferty, according to Darin McGowan, Daran Norris did an impression of Harvey Korman, who cartoon fans may know as everyone's favorite Flintstones character, the Great Gazoo. And he did a great job at it. But for as much as I love what the lovely Gray has done, and what Darin has done, my personal favorite actor in this sort is actually Billy West. Which also means Kevin is my favorite character here. He's just Stimpy as a bird, only less of an idiot than the fat red cat.
Jenny, look! Isn't it beautiful?
Hey, Ren! Your cousin is the coolest!
Billy doing his trademark very fine impression here may be distracting, but hey, I love Ren and Stimpy a lot, so I can let the similarities between Kevin and Stimpy's voices slide easily. But that's not all. Billy is also the voice of Renee, doing an impression of Peter Lorre, who has been one of the most common celebrity-based templates for cartoon voices since as early as the classic Looney Tunes days. And yes, this means Billy is essentially using his Red Hulk voice in here, only with more Peter Lorre this time, and less hints of Kirk Douglas and Burl Ives. I mentioned just a few moments ago that Kevin is my favorite character in Gorilla Girl, which brings me to my liking for the pilot's humor. In addition to having the same voice as Stimpy, which really adds to his likability, Kevin made me chuckle the most with the gags he provides. The best one is the free dress trap that he and Jenny get caught in. In a subversive move, it was the silly toucan who fell for the dress instead of Jenny. In general, the whole first encounter between our protagonist and the antagonist was a strong highlight, with Jenny tricking Rafferty and Renee into thinking she's more innocent than she actually is, and then proceeding to maul them after they call her a bad little girl. And this brings me to my liking for the pilot's visuals. Like Mobile Boy, Gorilla Girl is clearly primitive, no pun intended, with its early 2000s flash animation. It was actually made within 1 month, according to Darin McGowan, but it doesn't mean there's a lack of expressive energy in the character layouts themselves. Jenny herself is particularly expressive, especially whenever she's enraged. For instance, I love the detail of the RIP gravestones in her eyes when she begins to pounce on whoever she wants to kill just for not considering her a gorilla. The cartoon overall features some nice character designs, and the stylized jungle backgrounds are definitely a powerful component to the art direction. Also, I should mention that when I look at the design of Constance specifically, I can't help but think how Darin McGowan's background working at Kwasky Chupo was evident, because he does evoke some Wild Thornberry's energy, and not just due to her occupation examining animals a la Nigel Thornberry. Even more blatant, this lineup for additional characters made for the series pitch just straight up stole Darwin. With that being said, as we get closer to wrapping up this review, I'd love to acknowledge something interesting about Gorilla Girl's development I picked up when revisiting Darin's LinkedIn course. Remember in my Go Go Mobile Boy review when I said it was the only one of the Cartoon Monsoon sorts to get another version of its pilot made? Apparently, it was also the case with Gorilla Girl, described by Darin as, quote, a boy's soul in a girl's body. The pilot and its tomboyish heroine tested very well with young males, but the executives suggested added more girls to the cast to balance out Jenny's role as protagonist. So Darin and his team made a second pilot, but it ended up failing because these additional characters were upstaging the main one. Because this alleged second pilot of Gorilla Girl can't be found at this moment, it's impossible for me to speak in length on how the supporting cast were overshadowing Jenny, but I'm pondering how could they, given that this two-part web sort quite successfully demonstrated how Jenny is such a high-energy protagonist herself. Also, I doubt any of them can come close to outdoing Kevin as the best character. Hopefully this other Gorilla Girl pilot will resurface someday. It may not be the most original concept for an animated series, but based on my viewing of this funny online pilot, as well as the interesting trivia I heard from the creator himself about its development, I wouldn't mind seeing more of what Gorilla Girl could have potentially offered had it got the green light. My experience watching these forgotten gems that were part of the Cartoon Monsoon showcase is still pretty limited, but I don't see why I wouldn't consider this pilot to be one of my favorites from it. Don't expect this to be the last Cartoon Monsoon pilot I'll review though. Thank you Kristen, if you're watching this, for giving me this opportunity to swing right into another good Cartoon Monsoon episode. As for you Mr. McGowan, if you're watching this review, I hope you also appreciate my analysis of this old passion project of yours, and feel free to offer any more insight on the production of Gorilla Girl if you'd like. To everyone else watching, be sure to check out Gorilla Girl for yourself to form your own opinions. The links to both parts are in the description. As always, please remember to like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe for more cartoon reviews, we're so close to reaching 10,000 subs, hit the bell so you won't miss them, and leave a gorilla emoji to confirm that you watched this review until the very end. Thanks for watching and take care!